everybody, my name is Alan. On behalf of the crew, I'd like to welcome you to another edition of Bridging Heaven and Earth. You know, we all do our things day after day, week after week, and you know, we have our dramas, we have our loves, we have our joys. And during this particular time in history, it's right before one of the American elections. Now, which election, it almost in a way doesn't matter because the issues are similar. There's fighting between Republicans and Democrats. There's issues that seem important, and in a certain way they are important. And yet for all of us, there is some root experience. And I guess there's a new phenomenon, I don't know how new, but relatively new, you know, email and the internet. And I get, you know, from Bridging Heaven and Earth and personally, literally hundreds of emails a week, and they're all, or a lot of them are dealing with particular issues about solar or sonic booms and the whales, or something with the dolphins, or the rainforest here, or people starving here, or repression here. And as I've said so many times before, what date is that? I mean, there's always a time when that kind of disharmony is happening on this planet Earth. And we can deal with all these particular issues, and it's not that we shouldn't, and it is important to save the whale habitat. It is important to save the rainforest. It is important that the dolphins get a place where they're not trashed in one way or the other, where the waters aren't made toxic, where the air isn't made toxic. Obviously, we need to do that. But really, we all know that ultimately, if we don't cure the root, then we'll fix a leaf here, and the leaf over here will rot. If we don't heal the root, then sooner or later, the plant, this human experience, this earth is going to die. And what is the root? The root is that experience of the oneness, of the love of God, of truth. Throughout history, all the religions, all the spiritual paths talk about that experience of truth, of God, of... And we need to have it. So whether we're doing a television show, or whether we're trying to save the whales or the rainforests, or a certain issue in a political campaign, or a certain candidate for a political office, or to fight a war in Afghanistan, or fight a war in Iraq, or to fight against this or against that, or what we're fighting for peace. If we don't remember that root, if we don't feed that root in our own lives in whatever way we know to do that, then sooner or later that issue can be dealt with, that issue can be solved, that problem can be alleviated, and it's just going to move on. Because the disharmony of us not knowing that truth, of us feeling separate from each other and the truth and God, and that love that we know we are, will always result in disharmony somewhere. So if it's not the rainforest, it will be the whales. If it's not the whales, it'll be the dolphins. If it's not the Afghanistans, it'll be in Palestine. Or Africa, where there are droughts and famines. We don't feel the connection of the love. So for all of us, whatever we're doing in the next period, whatever our lives bring us to do, whatever we feel compelled to work on as a manifestation of our physical lives, just know that that love is within us, that connection, that oneness is real for us. And we need to know that. If we want to solve the ills of this world, we need to heal the root. And tonight we have a guest whose life is, again, an incredible dedication to that healing and that root, and to heal the heart of the human species. Gideo, who's been on the show before and is just a wonderful friend of Bridging Heaven and Earth, and a real supporter of what we're doing. He's a world-renowned healer. He's the author of an extraordinary book, Whose Hands Are These? And he has an unbelievably powerful and compelling story for those of you who weren't able to watch the show when Gene was on the last time. He had these extraordinary gifts as a little boy. He could heal just by looking at somebody, touching somebody. And people, his parents and people at that time, thought it was so weird and so strange that at 5 he went through exorcisms. At 7 he was institutionalized for a year, and every week of that year he had at least 2 shock treatments. So he had at least 100 shock treatments as a 7-year-old boy, 7 to 8, which obviously, you would think, and it happened, made him forget these gifts, made him put these gifts aside. And then he went on to have a family, and he was an electrical contractor of some kind. And then his whole life fell apart. He lost his job, his family, his money, his health. He got in a serious auto accident. And then through this serendipitous dream of another person, he came into a recognition again of that extraordinary gift he's had. And now he travels the world healing the heart, healing the physical body, healing the heart, healing the spirit, healing the division. He was so revered in Russia that he received the Cosmonaut Award, which is the highest award given to a non-Russian, that has only been given twice in the last 100 years. One to Gideo for all the work he did with the healings in Chernobyl. And tonight we're doing something that we've never done on Bridging Heaven and Earth before. We're turning basically the middle part of the show over to Gene to do a mini workshop and a healing just out to the cameras, out to the world, to hopefully heal the world at least somewhat. And we feel so gifted and so blessed to be able to be part of that. And hopefully all of you, whenever you're watching this, will feel it. Because from what he's told me, whenever you're watching it, the potential is there for that healing to take place. So we also have a beautiful music video. It's a Lessia song. It's called Heaven and Earth. We put it together with some slides from another friend of Bridging Heaven and Earth, Walter Matheson, and it's very beautiful. So it's a rare opportunity. I mean, I say that a lot, and each show is a gem unto itself. But with Gene tonight, and how much he wants to give, and how much effort he's made to be here, to share that with you, settle in, relax, and let Gene just heal your heart, whatever level it needs healing. So join me in a short meditation, then we'll have the video, and then Gene will be with us. So please join me. Thank you. So we're going to begin tonight's show, as I said, with the Lessia music video. It's called Heaven and Earth. It was written by myself and Lessia. It's performed by Lessia, and it's from the Lessia Bridging Heaven and Earth CD, Heaven and Earth.
Mason was the sweetest kid. He knew an awful lot, till he grew up and got busy, and then somehow he forgot the stars dancing in his head that connected all in sight. His world was more wide open then. He really had it right. He knew the bridge between heaven and earth. He knew the magic of love and all it was worth. left our joy behind. Well, Mason saw the stars once, and Jenny knew the truth. With the packaging so good out here, we seldom seem to choose to take the bridge between heaven and earth. To feel the magical oneness we all sense at birth, to know the power of love and what it's worth. To take the bridge between heaven and earth. Take the bridge between heaven and earth. Mason was the sweetest kid who knew an awful lot. Jenny was a happy girl, but somehow they forgot.
Hi, we're on the set with Gene. Welcome, Gene. It's great to have you.
Thank you, Al.
It's great to have you. So why don't you set, I called it a mini workshop and a healing.
Okay.
So why don't you tell people like basically what you're intending to do, and then we'll turn it over to you. So just kind of set the stage for it.
Well, basically, we're going to do two types of healing. One is going to be what I call the open eye meditation healing, and the other one is going to be absentee healing. I'll have your audience and people at home think of a name that they want to send energy to, and we'll send them the energy. Because energy has no boundaries, you know. And basically that. And then I feel really, really pushed to talk about the time when I passed over twice and the information I brought back. And I think this would be of interest to you and your audience.
Wow, fantastic.
Okay?
So you ready to start?
I'm ready. I'm at the starting line.
All right, then go get them.
Okay.
All right, Gene's going to do a mini workshop and a healing, and you're very fortunate. So,
Well, basically, I'd like to get a volunteer from the audience, first of all. Will you come up here, please? Don't feel bad. I haven't lost anybody yet, okay? And what I'd like you to do is just raise your arm like this and hold it. I'm going to push it down. I want you to resist me, okay? I think I picked the wrong one. Okay, I want you to say 5 times, I feel weak.
I feel weak. I feel weak. I feel weak. I feel weak. I feel weak.
All right, raise your arm again and resist me. What happened?
I don't know.
Your muscle in your head, which is your mind and your brain, told you you feel weak. So your body says, okay, I feel weak.
Wow.
Now say, I feel strong 5 times.
I feel strong. I feel strong. I feel strong. I feel strong. I feel strong.
Put your arm up again and resist me now, right? Whatever you think, whatever you say, is what you are. Remember that. There's no way around that. I've tried for years. It doesn't work. I want to thank you so much.
Thank you.
When I was 14 years old, I was sent to summer camp in, of all places, New Jersey. And what happened was that I had appendicitis. And for some reason or other, no one believed me. So they ruptured, and I ended up in the hospital. And I passed over. When I say I passed over, I left my body. It's the same story you hear from everybody and their brother that has done this. You start going to the ceiling, and next thing you know, you're gone. And that was the first time. Then I came back because I guess they threw me out. They didn't want me to be there. And I got peritonitis. Then I passed over again. And for me to say that what actually happened, for me to describe every moment, I would do it injustice. Because there's things that happen and information that I was given at that time that I didn't really realize I had. Now, I was 14 years old at this time. And I recuperated. And then I got back, as Alan was saying, I got back into the aspect of living life. Ended up getting married, 4 kids. Today I have 10 grandkids, believe it or not. And what happened was that all of a sudden this information flooded back into me. And I wrote this book, Whose Hands Are These? And the basic information that I was given was that when we're upstairs, we literally pick our team to come down to the playground, Earth. And what we do is, Alan, do you want to be my guardian angel? Oh, I'll take the trip with you, Gene. And would you like to be my higher self? Oh, okay, great. And I get my team together. And then I come down, and I have no memory of what's going on, because if I know the answers to the test, how can I take the test, right? So what happens is that we come down and we experience birth, we experience parents, God forbid illness, or whatever we need on our roadmap. In Germany, I call it the Autobahn. This roadmap has cross streets. How many times in life have we said, geez, I feel like I'm stuck in this particular situation? You're in a cross street. And each one of them cross streets has a lesson for us. And as we go through this, there's no overpasses, by the way. They're all cross streets. So as we go through this, we're experiencing what we need to experience. And it's like a golf game or a bowling game where we put down how many points we get for whatever we've got to do. And then when we get to a certain point, our soul, which is us, which is spirit, and is which we are right now, pushes the ejection button and back up we go. And then hey, I got so many points here, so many there. Wow, I got it all completed. I can move on. If I didn't get it completed, guess what? Back down to the playground you go. So something happens at that particular time. Your soul, as I say, that's who we are. We're spirit right now. Because we're down here on this playground for a physical experience, not a spiritual experience, because we're spirit already. So when we go back up and we see that we have passed and we've got all our marks we need to get, the soul does something. It fragmentates. It breaks apart. It creates another soul. Like a woman given birth, she's still the same person, but she has a creation she created. And that's where the new souls come from. So this is the thing that keeps moving, and keeps us going. How many times have you seen a person, you say, boy, you look familiar. I could feel like I know you. Probably a fragmented soul. And this is how life revolves on this playground. And this was one of the things I got when I passed over. But basically, that thought process never came back to me until about 20 more years later, when I needed to get it out to the people. And this is the evolution of soul and body, evolution of soul and body. And this is going to continue until there's no more todays and tomorrows. But that's going to be a long way off. And basically right now, I'd like to show you what I call an open eye meditation. And this meditation is a way of me getting to your audience with energy. I've done this in the Soviet Union and Russia at the time, where I was on national television, and I would sit there and send this energy out. And what would happen is the people would get healings. The next morning we'd hear from this one and that one. about different healings they received. So I'd like to get the Om tape started and just look at your people that are out there. And this is my way of saying, I love you. Okay? I would also like to go into some absentee healing at this time. So I would like the studio audience as well as the other audience at the other end of the camera to think of a name that they want to send healing to. And just the first name is fine. Okay, fine. And it's as simple as that because energy does not know any boundaries. I do this every day with photographs, over the phone, or hands-on healing as well. I was in, where was it, Beverly Hills, and we were doing a little session like we're doing now. And somebody in the back row lifted up their hand. They says, I want you to send healing to so forth and so on. And I says, fine. About 3 weeks later, I get a phone call, and it's the same person. And he said, you know, Gene, when you sent the healing, I looked at my clock, and then I called my mother. And she says, honey, whatever you're doing, keep doing it, because I'm out of a sickbed of 2 years, and I've stopped taking my medication. That's how fast it worked on her. And I says, geez, you know, I'm so happy for you. And he says, Gene, you don't understand. I says, what do you mean I don't understand? My mother lives in England. So energy has no boundaries. And this went on whether I was in Europe or we just came back from Germany. We just came back from DC where the sniper was. We just came back from New York City. And energy has no boundaries, or no matter what the situation is, it's there for us. Accept it. Acknowledge it. I had a time when I was on a train, a midnight train going to Leningrad from Moscow. And this man stepped into the car. It was a sleeper. And there was myself, a traveling companion, and a translator. And he says, in Russian, "That's my bunk up there," and he's pointing. And my translator says, "Don't worry, in the Soviet Union, we share everything. So don't worry, we don't disrobe." So I looked at him and I knew immediately there was something wrong with the left side of his face. Even though it was cleanly shaven, not a mark on his face. And he looked at me for the longest time after my translator asked him what was wrong. And he opened his mouth and he showed a gaping hole in his jawline where he got cancer and radiation poisoning from Chernobyl. And he was in awful pain, awful, awful pain. And I asked if I could work with him. So the train started, and I'm standing on the two bottom bunks, and it's like a karate match to keep my hand in there. And finally, he went to sleep, and I came down, and I went to sleep. And about, I'd say 3-4 hours later, it's an 8-hour ride, I hear somebody crying profusely. And I look over, and my traveling companion's sleeping, and I look up, and here's this Russian fella cross-legged, just crying. And I look over at my translator, and I says, "What's wrong? What's going on?" And she says, "Gene, he told me something that really touched my heart." And I said, "What's that?" She said that he woke up in the start, and he went to put his tongue in the hole, but there was no hole. And he realized he was out of pain. And he started to cry, and I started to cry with him. And then he said something else that really touched me. And I says, "What was that?" He said, "Today, after being a communist for 47 years, I know there's a God." And that was one of the highlights of that trip, believe me. Because after being, brainwashed for 47 years and something like this happens, it's a wonderful feeling. Wonderful, wonderful feeling. There's thousands of stories. I get hundreds of letters a day. I have, a couple of centers, healing centers, and people call and write us letters. And one of the ones I like the most is the ones that have some levity in it, because you have to smile at life. If you don't smile at life, it's going to overcome you. And I was on a phone healing with this fella in Chicago, and he had a hernia. So I worked with him, and I says, "Okay, we're finished," and went to the next person. And about, I'd say 3-4 weeks later, I get a letter from the same fella. And he says, "Gene, please call me. I have something very important to tell you." So I did call him. And he said, "I want to tell you about what happened to me with my healing." He says, "I have no more tumor, no more whatever it was called." And I says, "Well, that's great." He says, "But that same day, I had to take my wife to the hospital to get a cataract operation. And I was sitting in a waiting room waiting for her to come out. And the doctor comes out and proceeds to give me a holy heck. How come you brought her here? There's nothing wrong with her eyes." And he says, "Well, you told me to bring her here, So he goes into the room, and his wife is getting dressed, and he says, "Honey, what's going on?" She puts her head in his chest like this and says, "When you were getting your phone healing, I was on the extension. So who knows when it's going to happen and who it's going to happen to and when, Because it's a constant flow. It's always a flow, always a flow. I've had very many life experiences when I was traveling around the world. I can account for, in Armenia, the earthquakes, in Russia with the Chernobyl affair, in Germany when there was quite a influenza going on. And I would always seem to be protected. You know, it was like I was insulated. The deeper I got in with the people, the more I was insulated. So I know that there's somebody sitting up there watching me, you know. So this is part and parcel of what I do. I feel so driven to do what I do. And there's a joke goes around my healing centers that if nobody comes in to see him at a certain time, he'll go out in the street and drag him in, you know. But this is part and parcel, and I want to also take this opportunity to thank you for re-inviting me back to Bridging Heaven and Earth, because it has such a purpose, and it has changed so many lives. You know, I've received calls from the last time I was here, and I'm not looking at the calls I received, but I'm looking at the opportunity you folks have to do this. And it's a great, great thing you're doing, so don't stop. And if there's any way, any stretch of the imagination I can support you more than what I'm doing, sing out, I'll be there.
All right, get the list.
Yeah. Well, I just, as I said, really like to thank you because I'm very excited to be here.
We're
Very
excited to have you.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess I didn't say it at the open, but I mean, when we got this idea that we were going to do this, and you know, another friend of yours and ours and mine, Michael Tamora, I mean, both of you literally called back within an hour.
Yeah.
And we had, you know, in the hiatus, there was a whole thing going on with the studio here, and we couldn't get the dates. But as soon as we got the dates confirmed, I was in New York, and I called both of you guys.
I remember that, yeah.
And within an hour, you know,
Yeah.
you both said, well, what dates are open?
Right. Right.
And let's do it. And
Yeah.
it's really wonderful.
It is, and you know, the audience out there are soaking this in, but they don't realize what you go through to get this to be put together. It's no accidents.
Yeah, I know.
You know,
You got about 20 minutes. You could tell them all.
I thought you said 25.
Well, you got 25. We'll go over tonight. We'll do an extra long show.
Okay, what I'd like to do is take some questions from the audience here, other than my age and my weight. Can't
Actually,
ask that.
we got a list of questions, so I have them. So is it okay
Sure,
if I ask you?
why not?
Okay. So when you see somebody, people want to know what you see, or do you feel it? I mean, how do you know? Because we've had some people who, from the last show, have gone down to see you, and they're skeptical, and they don't believe it. You know, and I told them, what do you got to lose? You know, you're going to get cut open, go down. He's not that expensive. He's in Santa Monica. What do you got to lose? It's an hour and a half drive.
Yeah.
Are you out of your mind? This
Yeah.
is what I would do.
Right.
So they go down, and immediately you go right to that spot.
Yeah.
Why?
Alan, it's a knowing. You know, if I would say to you that, you know, I see little guys telling me, go over there, I'd be telling you a story. But it's a knowing that as soon as I get to a person, I'll know what's going on. And
I mean, so you'll know, will you know cancer? Will you know kidney? I mean,
Sure.
specifics.
yeah. But by the same token, I can't speak for that person. I can't say, hey, well, case in point, I was in a swimming pool in my sister's house and laying around like a walrus, right? And I look up and there's this lady there. And I said, what are you doing here? She says, I'm the realtor your sister wants to put the house on the market. And I said, oh, that's nice. She says, you know, she told me what you do. How do I look? And I looked at her. I said, well, when was your last physical? That would determine how you look. And she says, there's something wrong with me, isn't there? I says, look, do yourself and me a favor. Have a physical and then come back and talk to me.
Well, let me ask you that. So when somebody goes, is there something wrong with me? Why do you feel like you can't say
Well,
Why do they have to come to your clinic to get that? I mean, if they happen to catch you, with a
Yeah.
martini or whatever you're doing in the pool.
Yeah. But the thing is, I cannot speak for them. See, if I say to them, God forbid you have cancer, what are they going to think? That they have cancer?
Could you say something like, I would suggest you come to the clinic. There might be some way I could help you because this thing is
growing out of my head, right, yeah.
Did you
Well,
notice that there's
well,
this
y-
big thing?
I'll tell you a quick little story. I used to,
Don't tell me you had a big thing.
many, many years ago, I used to work in people's houses. I used to work in the back of bookstores, in the hallways of churches. Wherever I could do my thing, I did it.
This is before you had the 2 clinics.
Right.
Yeah.
And what happened was this lady came to this bookstore, and she had a tumor sticking out the side of her neck. And I put her in this cot, and I start to work on her, 15 minutes, maybe more, and I said, I'll be right back, because I had to go to the men's room. So
That's
I go-
allowed,
It's
even
allowed,
for healers.
yeah. So I go into the men's room, and I come out, she's gone. Where did she go, you
So
know?
the tumor shrunk so much
I
that
looked
it actually
under the
should
cot.
disappear.
I looked under the cot, she's not there, and I go out, and there's the owner of the bookstore hugging this lady.
So she hadn't disappeared.
No,
Just
but the
checking.
tumor did.
Wow.
Tumor
In
was
15
gone.
minutes.
Gone like that,
Did it have anything to do with you going to the bathroom?
probably.
Okay. Just
Okay,
check it.
Yeah, yeah. But the end of this story is that about 2 years later, I get a call from the same lady, and she says, I have a tumor in my breast. Can you help me? I says, you among all people
No, that
know
something could
something
happen.
can happen.
Right.
She says, okay, I want an appointment for Saturday. I says, fine. Saturday came and gone.
Didn't show up.
She didn't show. The end of the next week, I get another call from her. She says, I went to the hospital and got my breast removed. And I says, what's wrong with this picture?
Why?
You know?
Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
And she says, there's a probability my other breast has it. I'll come up Saturday. It's okay, come up Saturday.
Jesus.
Lo and
I don't
behold,
like this story.
lo and
It's
behold-
not going well, this story.
she didn't show up Saturday.
Right.
She called 2 years later, 2 years later. And she says, Gene, do you remember me? I said, how can I forget you?
Right.
And she said, I went to the hospital, I got my other breast removed, but I need you to work on me now.
Because the cancer had spread, right?
Yes. So,
Who would have guessed?
how do you figure that out?
What do you think? I mean, it's just that the fear and the medical community.
I think
and
it was
the
a
momentum,
combination of a lot of things.
fear of some
A
kind.
fear of something.
So even though she had this unbelievable, miraculous
Healing.
15-minute tumor disappearing, the fear still
Overrode
is
it.
so overriding.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's freaky, isn't it?
There's hundreds of stories I could tell you in that vein, And it is amazing. Sometimes people will get healed like that. Sometimes people will walk out the door cursing me because it didn't happen. But what I'm saying is that, this guy, he was 72 years old. He came in and I worked on him. He got up and he was very irate. He says, both my shoulders are hurting like heck now. What did you do to me? I didn't have this when I walked in the door. I says, well, did you ever have an injury? Never had anything wrong with me. I'm 72 years old and blah, 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 blah. Out the door he went like a wet chicken, right? About a half hour later he comes back in. I figured he's going to have a subpoena or something.
Right.
And he says, I got to apologize to you. I says, why? He says, when I was 20, I broke both my shoulders.
So the healing, you were healing something that was unhealed.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so it was going through like the healing process, which brought about pain for a while.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. I had somebody yesterday, the same situation. He says, I feel pain in this arm and this arm. He says, I haven't played my guitar in 1 year, and he says, I'm a professional guitar player. I said, well, move your fingers now. He moved them. He said, my goodness, I can move my fingers. but I still have pain, he says.
And the question a lot of people ask, I mean, you don't, I mean, we talked about this the last time, you don't heal everybody.
No,
in that.
no.
So, I mean, is there any rhyme or reason to it, or is just one of these
It's one of
miracles,
those mysteries.
the magic of
It's
inner
one of them
human?
mysteries. I wish I could, look at Joe or Mary and say, oh, you're going to be healed, But that isn't it. But what I've learned over the years is, even though they haven't straightened their arm out, they receive healing on other levels, whether it's emotional, whether it's something. I've had people that have called me up and said, you worked on my wife or my husband, and he passed away, and she passed away. But she went so beautifully. She was so happy. Where before, she was so frightened. So it works on all levels, whether it brings the healing right in or it brings the transformation right in as well.
So it's like a harmonious vibration, and it
Totally.
can work on
Whatever.
the physical, the spiritual, the emotional.
Whatever.
So it can go all the way through
Exactly.
to bring the person into some higher level of harmony.
Mhm. Exactly. And I've seen this throughout the years. As I say, I could sit here and tell you stories all night long over what people have related back to me. And it is amazing to see how different people react to different things.
And do you find the other question people had is like going back to what we did before, is like some people when they get a diagnosis of, say, cancer, I mean, obviously frightening,
Sure.
If you fear
Sure.
death at all, if you fear suffering at all, which
Yeah.
most people one way or another to some extent do, then you go, if you got it from doctors, they're saying you have to do this, this, and this right away. And the chemo and the radiation weaken the immune system so much. Do you find that is harder to heal after, or it doesn't matter, that's arbitrary too?
It's arbitrary.
It's arbitrary.
Yeah.
So if somebody's had years of chemo and radiation, it can be that they get healed, and somebody who hasn't had any, doesn't
Right.
matter.
Doesn't matter. I have clients like that now. I have one lady who's had cancer, full-blown cancer for 5 years. And she's never taken chemo, she's never taken radiation, not even a tablet. And I work on her possibly once a month. And she's chugging along as well as the
So
next
it's
person.
just theoretically the cancer's still radiating throughout her body.
Yes, yes,
So it can be tested, they could show it on
Oh, yes.
CAT scans,
whatever.
but her life and the composition of her life is good, and it's not growing?
No,
It's like stabilized? It's
every
some-
once in a while she'll pop a tumor someplace and we'll put it back to sleep again. And
And for some people it unwinds it, and for her it doesn't seem to this point,
Mhm.
get it back to where there's no discernible tumor.
exactly. Well, as I say, this has been going on for 5 years. And it's amazing. And I wouldn't say she's a strong lady, but she's a lady that has her mind in the right place.
And define mind in the right place.
Well, knowing that she has the power to know that she can be where she wants to be. There's only two people that make the decision for you to take off from this plane. That's you and a guy upstairs. Nobody else is involved, no matter what they do with you or without you. You two have that decision. And I've seen it. I've worked, well, my first experience with AIDS, this is going back, I found 73 guys at my doorstep with AIDS, women and men. And what happened was, my first center, I had one folding chair and a reclining chair. That was the extent of the furniture. So I said, well, come on in, pull up a piece of the floor, and I worked on all these people. And I says, look, I realize you have no money and everything like that. That's not what I'm about to begin with, but I need some wood for the fireplace to heat the place and so forth and so on. The next day, only half of them showed up because they had to take the responsibility and do something. So what happened is my one and only at that time paying client comes in, he's stepping over all these guys. And he goes on the recliner, he says, Gene, what's wrong with all those people out there? And in those days, it wasn't popular to say you worked with people with
Right.
AIDS. So I said, hey, what'd you say, Gene? I said, hey, you know, what do they have, Gene? I says, they have AIDS. Well, he cleared the chair.
It was out.
And he was out the door,
Right.
running down the street, and he was a lawyer. I says, here we go. So about 3:30 that afternoon, I get a
It's a
phone
good thing you
call.
didn't have much furniture to lose in the
I know,
lawsuit.
right? Well, I was looking
Take
at my
the chair,
socks.
take the one bed out.
Yeah, yeah. So he calls me and he says, Gene, I want to see you tomorrow. I said, oh, here comes the subpoena and he's going to deliver it, right? And I said, sure, okay, no problem. So then he comes over and he says, Gene, I want to tell you what happened to me yesterday after I left you. I went down to this Livingston clinic, is a clinic in San Diego where they work on just cancer people. He says, I went down there and there was this lady there that I know because we became great friends and we love to sit down and just talk about this and that. And she's a lawyer too. And we were sitting there and I told her what you did to me. And she looked at me and started to cry. And I said, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to dump this on you. She says, I guess we're not going to have dinner anymore because I have AIDS. How fast things come around. So he says, I'm staying here. I don't care how many people you have in here. So it's amazing how we get around to things like that. So life has been a lesson to me in many, many ways. But I feel very privileged because this isn't mine. It's mine to give out.
You know, actually, why don't you tell that the one rule you have at the center, the 6-month rule with the terminal patient?
Yeah,
I love that story.
every time someone comes into me and tells me they've got 3 days to live, 2 months to live, and blah, blah, blah. and
This
I
is
s-
the medical
Yeah,
diagnosis
right.
for them.
And I say to them, I have one rule in this place. And they say, what's the rule? I says, at the anniversary of the time that you were told that, I want you to send that doctor a get well card. So there's a lot of get well cards flying around the posts. Yeah. So, and you need this humor, because without this humor, life doesn't mean anything. You know?
Yeah, I mean, we talk about it a lot. We talked about it last time. I mean,
Right.
how everybody takes, or a lot of people take so many things so seriously.
True.
And, like I said at the open, I mean, it is serious that the, the sonic sounds are killing the whales and they're beaching
Right,
themselves all over
exactly,
the place.
exactly.
And it is serious that the rainforests are getting crapped out. And it is serious that, all these things. And yet, if we don't heal the heart, heal the root of it, sooner or later, we're
You're
just going to
putting
move
a
on to the next
Band-Aid
thing.
on it.
Yeah, we're
Putting a
moving on to the
Band-Aid on
next
it,
thing.
yeah. So this is basically what I do, and I spend my time zipping around the world or in my 2 centers, and it's so rewarding to me that if you say to me, Gene, what did you do before you started this?
Who cares?
Who cares? Who remembers? The other part just wipes it right out. And, I've said this before, I see somebody come in the door with a frown and pain and this, and we're finished. Hi, goodbye, smile on his face. You can't buy that. You cannot buy that. It's something that really works from the inside out. And I feel very blessed with it.
It's interesting because, I got here a little before you tonight, and there were some other friends of the show and you, and they'd been down to see you, and I think it was from they'd seen the first show, and then they'd gone down to see you. And one of the women was saying that, and she's done a lot of spiritual work or play or activity in her life, and she had, 2 or 3 really deep experiences, and the first time she went in for a healing with you, I mean, and it, the physical thing happened too, but she was taken to that place of,
Right.
of deep spiritual connection, which, I mean, you and I know each other a little bit now. To me, that's the connection we really want, and everything
what
else
we're
is
looking
from
for.
there is that connection to the infinite, that connection to love, that connection to truth, God, however you would describe it. And from there, everything else comes. All the
Right.
joy comes, all the love comes, all the healing comes.
Yeah, I call it the other stuff window dressing, because what really counts is what comes out of here. And this is the foundation. You're saying the earth and this is the love. Love is the foundation.
Right. Love is the question, love is the answer.
Right.
I don't know if we played. We have a song on that's Lessia CD that
Yeah.
that's it's called The Question, but that's basically love
Exactly.
is the question and love is the answer.
Exactly.
And life is, the lessons in between to learn that.
And that's for sure. And once again, I'd really like to thank you, because it's been an exciting experience appearing here again.
Well, actually, we talked about this earlier. I mean, I think that part of what, the next step that we're going to do, and, we've talked about that, is do like a documentary, so we could have it, a 50-minute section and a 20-minute, and just show it at different parts and come down to the center and see the healings.
Right.
And see people come in with the frowns and leave with the,
That would be great.
just to
Welcome
see-
anytime.
Yeah, and just to do that. And you were talking about that somebody was telling you that to do a daily show
Yeah.
on national television.
Yeah.
Tell them you have to check all the times Bridging Heaven and Earth is on in different cities. We can't be on then. We don't want to be against those people.
Yeah, well, the old saying, que sera, what will happen will happen.
Do you think these people are serious? Do you think they understand
Very
what you're
much
doing?
So. Very much so, yeah. They're good spiritual people. That's the only reason I'm talking to them.
Uh-huh.
And I've done a pilot already, and the pilot is actually the 5th and the 6th. CBS and NBC is going to see it. So we'll see what happens. But I don't want that to take away from what I do.
Do you think that the possibility is that if you could reach people like we did tonight through the television, that it would almost be using the media in a strengthening way and as
Exactly.
an enlivening way, almost more than than your clinics even?
Well, the story I tell about Russia, actually Soviet Union at the time, was that people kept giving me little letters to bring back to the States, and unbeknownst to me, they were currency in there too. So I had this bag over my shoulder, and I'm going through customs, and the guy in front of me gets his bag ripped apart. I says, "Oh, geez, here I go breaking the salt, mine." So this guy grabs.
You love Siberia.
The guy grabs the thing off my shoulder, and he says, "You come with me." And I says, "I'm dead in the water," right? And we get about 5 steps, and he puts his arm around me. He says, "I want to thank you for what you're doing for my people."
Really? So in other words, from the
TV.
television he knew.
Right, exactly.
So do you think it could possibly be that you could give up the clinics because the media and that energy could be almost in a way stronger, more reaching more people?
Yeah, I don't think I would give them up. I would maybe
Cut back?
cut back a little, because I'm over 25 now,
Oh my God. We fooled everybody.
I
They
didn't
thought
mean to
this was
say-
2 teenagers. It's amazing how they could do this and still be such teenagers. So I think, are we coming to the end of the show? Okay, so I don't know, if you've been watching from the beginning, I mean, you could see the joy and the love that we've all had to share. So if you want any information on Gene, workshops, healings, 805-687-2053. We love you. Good night. God bless you. Thank you.